video a continuation from a recent post I made regarding the Vesica Pisces. In this particular one I want to discuss the use of the Vesica Pisces in town planning, how that relates to Pythagorean triplets such as the 3-4-5 triangle and the 5-12-13 triangle, also to the 12-inch foot. Most sources will place the 12-inch foot that we currently use as a relatively modern measurement. That's absolutely incorrect. The evidence of that can be found all across the ancient world, including the Parthenon, especially if we look at something called the Salamis stone, which actually has, it's something of a conversion tool between Ionic, Doric and the common foot that we know. So it's absolutely a fact that the modern foot dates back to at least 2,500 years, 500 BCE and the Parthenon. We can also see it continued through to the Roman world. So just to start off with, the 12-inch foot we use is actually a very ancient tool. 100% incorrect to say it's a modern invention. Also, as we go through, there's references to time and direction, thus the sundial. Also, the golden ratio is why I have the pentagram here. If you want to make up stories about blah blah blah, satanic, good on you. Okay, so let's stick with the facts and let's put the crap behind us. Okay, so let's begin. In 1810, Governor Lachlan Macquarie arrived in Australia. He was the fifth, called the last autocratic governor of Australia. He's also referred to as the father of Australia. Because of his social policies, he basically broke the back of the English class system. That's why we don't have, at least officially, a class system here in Australia, but people who live here might know a little bit better than that. But at least we got rid of the worst parts of the class system because of Governor Macquarie. But his most lasting legacy was his town planning and architectural legacy. Between 1810 and 1820, he basically set up the template for all the towns and cities in Australia. And in later years, we see countries like America, Canada and New Zealand adopted the same system. But at least in the New World, we can trace it back, the origins to Australia and Governor Lachlan Macquarie and his town plans. They were all based on, Governor Macquarie was a Freemason, and his major architect, Francis Greenway, was a Freemason. However, his main surveyor, Thomas Meehan, was not a Freemason, doesn't seem to be. But the Freemasonic esoteric legacy is deeply rooted in the architecture and the street plans, and it's something that's not well known and not much discussed. And it begins with what's termed sacred geometry. If you don't like that term, just remove the sacred, because it's geometry at the basis of it. So beginning with the Vesica Pisces, we're going to create 3-4-5 Pythagorean triangle. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You might remember that from earlier. Now we're going to begin with a construction line, and we're going to draw a Vesica Pisces, and from that we're going to create a series of 3-4-5 triangles, which also define the size of the blocks which Macquarie used here in Australia and was later used in other parts of the world. Macquarie was not the inventor of this. I just want to point out, I'm just beginning from 1810 and Macquarie period because of the and show how it was later adopted in other cities. But this is very, very, very ancient, and Macquarie only simply imported it. He did not create it. So now we have a Vesica Pisces. The radius of the circles is exactly the same. So we can see. So let's call the radius of the circle, or the distance between compass points, as 1. So this is 1. This is 1. And of of course this is 1. Now you see 1 again, and of course 1. So effectively what we have is a shape that's defined by 2 by 3. Now we're going to create a rectangle around this Vesica Pisces, and so again I haven't changed the compass, and what I'm going to do is begin here, put my point here, I'm going to draw a small arc, and I'm going to do the same on the bottom portion and then repeat it on the other side. Now I'm going to create another construction line that runs down the middle of the Vesica Pisces, which will give us, this is a good, if you want to create right angles, this is an excellent template to begin with. So, construction line down the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my compass to what is effectively 1.5. So with our point in the middle, okay, I've actually gone a little bit too fast, but I'm going to leave that here. So we have our compass there, and let me get my other compass, and I'm going to adjust that back. So I've skipped one step ahead, a little bit too fast, but that's, so we set it to the size. Now from the center, I'm going to draw an arc there, and the same thing here on the bottom. So if we focus now on these 2 points, and go back to our compass, which is set at 1.5 radius units, and we're going to use these points now, and the same on the other side, up to the top, and there. So now we have 4 points. These 4 points define the rectangle which surrounds the Vesica. Texture, make it a bit clearer. Same on the top. So what we have now is the rectangle which encloses the Vesica Pisces. It is 3 wide and 2 high. Now, if I draw a line from the center to this top diagonal, and now what we need to do is forget about this half of the rectangle. Now what we've done, let's forget, I'm going to change the colour to illustrate this better. So now we have this blue rectangle. The hole is free, so this would now effectively be 1.5. And there, but what we've really, so we can, 1.5 now becomes 3, and this becomes 4. 3, 4. Pythagorean Theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 3 squared is 9, plus 4 squared 16. Gives us 25. The square root of 25 is 5. So now we have 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles. We do the same on the other side, and we can see how the Vesica Pisces, which is enclosed by this rectangle, is composed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles, the Pythagorean Triplets. Okay, so that's step one. So we see this is the geometry. It's a fundamental of maths. It's built into the cosmos. It's got nothing to do with symbolism. It's just cold hard facts. So now I want to show how this relates to Governor Lachlan Macquarie and the town planning and Masonic architecture arises from this. So I'm going to start again with a construction line. A Vesica Pisces. I hope I'm in screen, yep. Okay, so I showed you previously how to do it accurate, so I'm just going to freehand it for the moment because it's just to save some time. That would be it. Use the tangents up here to... And it's a little bit, again, I've showed you in the previous part, so you know it's accurate. I'm just freehanding here to save time. Okay, so now we've enclosed the Vesica within its rectangle, and we've shown that it's at a ratio of 2 high to 3 wide. This is the basic plan for blocks used by Governor Macquarie. When he arrived in 1810, he immediately set about redesigning the existing towns and city, what became Port Jackson at the time, became Sydney City, and Parramatta. They were both established in 1788. In 1810, he did a lot of redesign, which included reducing the size of the streets to 66 feet or 1 chain, and redesigning the blocks. You won't find this too much in Parramatta and Sydney because the cities were already established. People owned land, and it was a very expensive exercise to repurchase the land and redesign the whole city. But in 1810, on November the 7th, that's the 11th month and the 7th day, 7/11, he founded the town of Liverpool in the southwest of Sydney. Later that year, he wrote a letter to James Meehan, his surveyor, for the establishment of 5 new townships in the northwest of Sydney: Richmond, Windsor, Pitt-town, Castlereagh, and which one am I forgetting? Wilberforce, yes. All of those 5, except for Windsor, use this plan. Windsor has a slight deviation, but even Windsor has this included, but we're just going to stick with the town plan. So of Liverpool, Richmond, Pitt-town, Castlereagh, Wilberforce, built on this plan. This plan itself encodes numbers of sun, earth and moon, but especially of New Jerusalem, and especially the King James Version or the Masonic Bible version of that. So in his letter to James Meehan, the surveyor, Macquarie said that all towns, the blocks should be 8 chain by 12 chain. We can see that 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. So here now with this we have how Governor Macquarie and his Freemasonic design template, how it comes about. It's the Vesica Pisces. And it's also built on those 4 of the 3, 4, 5 Pythagorean triplets. But let's point it out. So chain and 8 chain. One chain equals 66 feet equals 792 inches. Therefore, we can now convert chain to feet. So 12 chain equals 792 feet. And 8 chain, 8 times 66, is 528 feet, or 1/10 of a mile. So already we can see 528 and 792. These numbers are about as esoteric and mysterious as you can get, and they encode a whole lot of information, not just metrological information to the Earth, but also in regards to Sun, Earth and Moon, and to New Jerusalem in specific. So, okay, let's double check my number. Now, 792 feet also happens to be 528 cubits. So we have double reference to 528 and 792. And as I said, the streets were 66 feet. 66 feet equals 792 inches. We'll see these repeated again and again. These numbers are also closely related to New Jerusalem, Sun, Earth and Moon. Okay, and I'll move on to the next step. And we're going to draw a Vesica Pisces, the construction line of course. And we're going to show how this relates to the hexagon, the cube and New Jerusalem. So we draw a Vesica Pisces. From this, we can now get a hexagon. Beehive, Saturn, Jupiter, hexagons are very interesting shape, and but now if I draw these points, we have a 2D representation of the three-dimensional cube. Now I'm going to read from Revelation 21:16. I've got I think it's an international standard, but the interesting one to look at is the King James Version, or in the Masonic Bible. Revelation 22:16, he's talking about what's called New Jerusalem. The city lies foursquare, its length the same as its breadth. He measured the city with his rod/reed, 12,000 stadia. Its length and breadth and height are equal. My version that I've read from says 12,000 stadia. The King James Version, Masonic Bibles, will say 12,000 furlong. 1 furlong, still used in horse racing, it's equals 660 feet, equals 792 inches. And here we have our first clue. 7,920 miles equals the equatorial diameter of Earth. Equatorial is important because it's different from the polar diameter, which is measured in Egyptian royal miles, and it's a later topic. But so, New Jerusalem, 12,000 furlong high, wide, 12,000 furlong high, and 12,000 furlong deep. 1 furlong is 660 feet. and therefore 12,000 furlong. Just in calculator, don't want to miss out on a zero. 12,000 times 660 equals, write this one in red, 792,000 feet. Now, if we convert that into cubits, that turns out to be 528,000 cubits. So again, 528,792. Over. We see Macquarie's plan, 12 chain by 8 chain, underneath it hiding the numbers 528,792, 528,792. Which of course emerges from the Vesica Pisces, the outside, but also on the inside of the Vesica Pisces we get the hexagon and these measurements and these 528,792. These are numbers that are underlying so much of esoteric architecture. For instance, if the Scottish Rite Cathedral in Indianapolis, the House of the Temple in Washington, you will find that these are the defining measurements just hiding underneath the surface. Alrighty, so 3, 4, 5 triangle, Pythagorean Theorem, Macquarie's plan, 792, 528, Vesica Pisces, and New Jerusalem. Anyway, so yeah, that's the an introduction into Macquarie's town planning and the geometry and the numbers that come from there. So we'll go to the next page, and I just want to highlight. Okay, so 528,792. Earlier I mentioned the ancient origins of the so-called modern foot. If we go to the Parthenon, Mark Wilson Jones from the University of Bath discovered something which, well, not discovered, he found and decoded something which is called the Salamis stone, which is the oldest modern foot unit is found in this stone. Also we can find Doric and Ionic feet. So what that means, so if we want to quickly, so we have our Parthenon, okay, the columns. Each column of the Parthenon is 48 modern feet high, which equals 45 Doric feet or 50 Ionic feet. This is very important because firstly on the practical level, when they were building the Parthenon, they had various mason teams from across the Greek world, and each one of them had their own unit of measurement. Some were working on Ionic, some on Doric, and some on the common / modern foot. But by using these proportions, each team of builders could use a whole unit of measure. So there wasn't one team left over working on 3/8 or something. That's on the practical level, but on the more esoteric level, let's say this is now a harmonic or a unity measure. A point on the scale where the common feet, or so-called modern common feet, whole number relationships with other units. Now, this doesn't happen on everywhere, but there are only certain points on the measure scale where these various units will come together and have a harmonious relationship, and especially if you break down these relationships, there's musical, astronomical applications to it as well. But let's stay here for the moment. want to point out what's the importance of 792. So I've already mentioned in New Jerusalem the 792, and while I'm on here, actually just to bring back the point of unity measurements and harmony measurements. This is one perfect example of how various units of measurement will come together. For example, each one of these is the same length, 792,000 feet. This just happens to convert into the metric scale at a perfect meterage. And I just need to bring that up. Okay, so 12,000 furlong is exactly 241.4016 meters, exactly to the nanometer. So again, we're having a point at where various measure systems come together. I mentioned ionic and Doric. Now, this is 33, and pardon me, I noticed, and 6 zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, ionic palm. Same measurement here is 9, 9, 0, 0, 0, 6 zeros, ionic inches, or 9, 9, 0, 0, 4 zeros, Doric span. Now, okay, and just to complete the system, this same 12,000 furlongs is 500 leagues, 1,500 miles, or 480,000 rods. So what does New Jerusalem mean in the Masonic sense? Perfect scales of harmonious measurement with these very, very sacred numbers. The Parthenon, you can also, I'm focusing on the Parthenon, but we can go through the whole Roman world, Byzantine, even time of Charlemagne. Throughout history, to find, it's almost difficult to find a place which doesn't have it. This is the standard of what's hiding underneath all this esoteric architecture. 528 equals 33 times 16. So if I take 528 and divide it by 2, divide it by 2, divide it by 2, I'm going to come back to 33. Anyone who's slightly interested in Freemasonry, Oddfellows, esoteric groups, the Druids, understand the importance of 33. If we apply the same thing to 792, that equals 99 times 8. So 792 divided by half, divided by half, divided by half, you're going to break it down and it's going to come into 99. 33, 99, and 66. These are the scales which is underneath all this mystery. Okay, and now, well, 528, I'm going to stick with 792 for now because I don't want to go for too long. 792 connects to Macquarie's town plans, connects to New Jerusalem, and well, much more than that. So now we're going to do a little bit of sun, earth and moon. Let's begin with the moon. There's the sun, Here we have the Temple of Man. And we have the Earth. So, the Moon. The radius of the Moon, 2160 miles. The radius of the Sun, equatorial radius of the Sun, 864,000 miles. The Temple of Man, or New Jerusalem. The number here is 1728. Why 1728? Because New Jerusalem is 12,000 furlongs high, 12,000 furlongs wide, and 12,000 furlongs deep. 12 times 12 times 12 is 1728. So this is the Temple of Man. But I also want to point out, this is a one-dimensional unit, across. One-dimensional across. This now is a volumetric. It's a three-dimensional unit because it's 12 by 12 by 12 high. This places man as the three-dimensional. Now, okay, harmonic numbers. So what I'm going to do is an insert here. The radius of the Moon is 1,080 miles. The radius of the Sun is 43,200 miles. 1728, and now we have the Earth. The equatorial radius of the Earth is 7920 miles. However, the polar diameter of the Earth is 66,912 Egyptian royal miles. This is very important because before I go, so therefore, if that's the polar diameter of the Earth, the polar radius of the Earth is 3456 Egyptian royal miles. Now, let's have a look at that. Let's forget the zeros for a second at the end. 108 times 2 is 216. 216 times 2, 432. 432 times 2, 864. 864 times 2, 1728. 728 times 2 times 2 again. Now, why is this? There's some symbolism and interesting points to bring out here first. I'm going to come back to 792, but this is very important because 792 is the number which is hiding and unifying all of these systems. But let's begin. So we have the Temple of Man. Man relates to the Sun equatorially. He sees it rise over the horizon. Equatorial diameter. Same with the Moon. And as we double again, we go to the Earth scale. So 720 it gives us 3, 4, 5, 6. But this works on the polar diameter because man stands on top and relates to the Earth in this direction, as where he relates to the Sun and the Moon horizontally. Also, you'll see that we're going miles. We come to the Temple of Man, and now we shift units. We come to Earth and we shift units. This is very, very important, but I'm going to, this alone will take many episodes to go through. So, but just to show these are the harmonic numbers, and we see. But now we're going to bring back to how 792 is the underlying number which unites all of these, because as I showed earlier, in New Jerusalem, 792,000 feet. So New Jerusalem, 792,000 feet. Now, what's the radius of the Sun? Pause a minute, I just need to get my numbers accurately. Okay, so the Sun, 792,000 0, 0, 0, Ionic, fathom. What's the diameter of the moon? This number here, 7920000, Ionic cubits. So on the harmonic Pythagorean tuning scale, 108, 216, 432, 864, 1728, 3456, 1692, all linked by 792 using the Ionic scale. Ionic. So, what was Governor Macquarie doing, and what were the people in New Zealand, Canada and the US doing later, especially through the City Beautiful movement? People like Daniel Burnham, which it's also in Chicago, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Washington, and a whole bunch of basically all these cities across the world. Not every single one, but the ones with very, very strong Oddfellow, Freemasonic, Druid / Esoteric links. So we go through this again. The Vesica Pisces encodes Pythagorean Theorem. Governor Macquarie designed the streets of Sydney and rest of New South Wales using the Vesica Pisces to incorporate these numbers. Later cities such as Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide and Brisbane in Sydney, the literature will say that they were actually, they moved away from Macquarie's numbers because they used squares instead of rectangles. Pure nonsense, because if you use their measurements again, you'll see that they're squares, 792 and 528. It's underneath all of those, such as John Oxley, another Freemason in Brisbane, Robert Hoddle going down into Melbourne, and all of the cities of Australia and so much of the New World. 528, 792. New Jerusalem, 792, 528. And while I'm here, each face of, okay, so let's go, now I want to go to the harmonic. 108, 216, 432, 864, 1728. The volume of New Jerusalem is 1728, 0.000000000 cubic furlong. Now so now we're looking at and now what do we see? We can see 3 faces. 1, 2, 3. Each face has an area of 140 square furlong, which means the maximum visible area is 432.0 furlong, but the entire surface area is 864 furlong. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So we have 9 visible edges of 12,000 furlong. That's 108,000 furlong. 108, 432, 864, 1728. Here we see again how hiding underneath this is harmonious measurements, symbolic measurements, the Pythagorean tuning scale, and also 144. I mentioned the walls of New Jerusalem are described as being 144 cubits thick. In the Bible, 12 tribes of Israel, 12,000 per tribe, 144,000. 144 you'll see repeated over and over again. Now, 144, and let's just skip. Okay, now we're back on Governor Macquarie's town plan. He made all his streets 66 feet wide, 66 feet, 792 inches. But what he did was also mandate 12 feet of footpath or pavement on either side. 12 feet equals 144 inches. And speaking of phi, if I was to now take this, the carriageway section of the road, and we create the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which means pi and phi and pi squared, phi squared, sorry. So again, all these are all connected and they all emerge from the Vesica Pisces, Pythagorean Triplets, the Great Pyramid, pi, 792, 528, New Jerusalem, Ionic and Doric scales, the meter, symbolic numbers. We see the harmonious scales of the harmonic numbers, Pythagorean tuning. 528 breaks down to 33, 792 breaks down to 99. We also, again, with New Jerusalem being a conversion tool between several different units of measurement, we see how Ionic and Doric and famous buildings such as the Parthenon, the Pantheon, the Paestum complex, the Temple of Artemis, and the list goes on. And like I said earlier, try and find one which doesn't have it. You're going to struggle. You're going to struggle very hard. Sun, Earth, Moon, Man, all joined by 792. This here is part of the mystery. This is a reason why 33, 99, 108, 432, 864 is repeated in all the esoteric architecture cities such as Sydney, Canberra, Washington, Chicago, Winnipeg in Canada, New Zealand, and all across the world. It's all about harmonious numbers and geometry and mathematics. Now, why geometry and mathematics? Because they are universal laws. They cannot be lost in translation. 1 + 1 = 2, it always will. If you use, let's say, just symbolism, it can mean many things to many different people, and it will change over time, like the written word. If you were to take a dictionary from 100 years ago and compare it to a dictionary today, the words have changed. The spelling has changed, but language changes over time. Mathematics and geometry does not. It's a universal constant. If you find an alien civilization somewhere, the rules that define the Vesica Pisces and that define the hexagon are cosmic. They cannot be avoided, they cannot be changed, they cannot be screwed around, they cannot be mistranslated. They simply are. And this is what the esoteric groups such as the Freemasons have been protecting for a long time. They had to go secret because you had flat earthers burning people at the stake because they didn't want to know the truth. You had paranoid religionists who call everyone, who disagrees with them demonic and such. And so the knowledge had to go underground, and the secrecy has now been built into the system. So it's hard once the secrecy has been built in, it's hard to get unplugged. Having said all this, I'm not an odd fellow, I'm not a Freemason, I don't belong to any groups whatsoever. This is all my independent research. I was inspired by Scott Onstott and Randall Carlson, and especially Mark Wilson Jones, who is not an esoteric researcher, but his study of the Salamis stone and the use of Ionic and Doric scales helped to bring a lot of this all together. So I think I'm rambling a little bit now. I've gone on quite a bit, but here you go. You can, as I've shown you, you can do these, test these for yourselves. It's maths. You can't argue with it. It just is. Thank you.